Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. It's late. I've already finished a video. My roommates are all playing stuff, but I need to talk about this. There are the prompt for this video is Diversity in Comics video. Mags Visaggio is the greatest fraud in the history of the comic book industry, where he just reads through this comic book and he points out how horrible the dialogue is. And towards the end, he sort of just asks for comments. He sort of makes a call for how do you save the comic book industry, and that kind of put the bee in my bonnet. So the funny thing about this is I actually have a semi-polished script, but I was saving it for later. I was planning to bring this out when I made the first few videos in this vein, and then kind of you'd see the effect of this on my channel. But because of Diversity in Comics video, I'm bumping this up because I think this needs to be talked about. I want to tell a little story that the Diversity in Comics channel reminded me of because it's completely relevant to the impact of comics and the impact of comics on me personally. So a couple weeks ago, I went to church, and this family brought their son who was special needs. I think he had Down syndrome, and I knew the family. So while they were running around doing volunteering and cooking, so I volunteered to just draw with their son while they were working. And over the course, we started, doing some doodles, and we made some comic stories. And the young man had a very difficult time communicating, and he asked to read to me, and he tried reading a story, and it kind of became clear that he was making up words. He wasn't really reading. So I listened for a while, and then I suggested, may I read you a story now? And I read to him Duck Avenger issue number 0, published by IDW Comics. And I picked that one because I thought, man, what's a comic I can pick that the parents will, you don't know, how conservative parents at church might be. They might have very strict taste over what they're okay with you reading to their kids. So I picked a Disney comic because I had confidence that the parents would have no problem with me reading a Donald Duck comic to their kid while I was watching him. And I just started reading it. He got really invested, and the mother overheard, what I was reading as she came by, and she was just completely impressed by the sound of the story. I mentioned that you can get this at a comic book shop. I made a move the needle pitch on IDW's Duck Avenger number 0. And this whole experience was really edifying, because I drew and made comics with the young man. It was sort of a reminder to me of why I love comics, the power of the medium, the importance of the medium to me, the importance of me in making comics. But it also is sort of sad because IDW may be dying. So it's like there were 2 prompts for videos in that Diversity in Comics video, because then I scroll down and the top comment is from a popular channel, Yellow Flash, and his comment is, IDW is going to die. There is no saving it. And I liked it because I hate it, but I have to agree. I don't know if it's possible for IDW to bounce back after this bad year, and I hate that because I love the Duck comics so much from IDW, and I don't want to see those go away. I want those to be a continual introduction to comics for young people that IDW has been doing. And for all we know, if IDW fails, then that might be the end of them importing these Duck comics. That people might interpret that as, well, I guess people don't want to buy good Donald Duck comics from other countries. So I want to freaking save IDW. So my boy Zach, if you're watching this video, that was my bloviation. So here is my proposal for how to, like Douglas Ernst says, hashtag save comics. Now I'm going into my script. So what you see on this screen is a picture of the piece of paper that I scribbled down the names of the comic books that I wanted to go get based on watching Diversity in Comics videos mostly. And you can see with a giant square and a bunch of stars around it, Mr. Miracle number 1. I found that list after months. It was stuffed in between some books. And that's just a reminder to me of what YouTube channels, the Diversity in Comics channel first, but then other channels after that have prompted me to do, which is to get back into the medium of comics more seriously, particularly superhero comics. So with that, here's the script that I was going to talk about later, and that now I bumped forward. point the needle, strengthening, hashtag move the needle. So I'm going to skip over some junk. A while ago, I made a video where I was just bloviating, sort of like I'm doing now, going on a lot of tangents. And then after some people roasted me, I said, okay, well, I've got to get more serious. And what's my way of getting more serious? I call it point the needle. Now, this is not an attempt at a new hashtag. We do not need a new hashtag. I strongly de-emphasize the importance of Twitter hashtags unless they do one thing, which is succinctly communicate something important, which Move the Needle already does. What do you want to do? We want to save the comics industry. How do we do that? We move the needle. Point the Needle is not a new hashtag movement. It is a strategy to make Move the Needle get even stronger and last forever. I'm thinking of a lot of conversations I've had with people which have helped refine this idea, Indie Dave Comics, but for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to get into it. So if you hear something which echoes a conversation I've had with you, just know that you haven't been forgotten. The idea of pointing the needle is thinking of the needle like a compass pointing north so you can find direction. The reason I'm thinking of it that way is after listening to people recommend comics, those were Venom, Mr. Miracle, White Knight. Those were the first 3 books I purchased at a comic shop as an adult after a 10-year break from superhero comics. I was someone who was passionate about superheroes, but listening to YouTube conversations about these comics is what helped me overcome the mental barrier of not knowing which good books to go buy. The idea of pointing the needle relates directly to the idea of making comics feel like a fun, welcoming industry to new people, where, yes, of course we talk about unprofessional behavior, we can talk about politics, we can talk about philosophy, we can talk about art, but to point the needle is to speak directly to a person wondering which comics they should go get and say, here you go, all in one place, without having to watch 20 videos. Here are the books you should go buy yesterday. If you are making a video praising a comic, that helps move the needle. It's sort of like having an in-depth conversation with someone about why a particular comic is really good. In contrast, to point the needle is like noticing your friend who already wants to go into the comic book shop, but they're sort of wandering around outside waiting to go in, and you have to get to work, so you just jot down a list of the 5 or 10 books that they need to get. Boom, you hand that to them, you get these books, and that's all the time you have before you have to rush off to work. So I'm planning to go back. I'm going to look at every book I read and liked this past year, and I want to sum up what I liked or didn't like about them, maybe in a single image or in a single sentence per series. Anyone could do this, and there could be a lot of flexibility in how you format your own video, summing up the best comics you've read this year. Since I come from a background in painting, I've given some thought to color theory and how I want to structure my channel. And I want to share that with you, not as a necessity, but as a possible suggestion of how you could make your own video in this vein, as clear and efficient as possible. What you are looking at is not a cartoon Great Dane gender fluid pride flag. This is my proposal of colors you could use to talk about how strongly you recommend a comic or discourage people from buying a comic. I took some inspiration from the Nintendo channel Arlo's system for scoring games on a scale of 1 to 7, but I added this very easy idea. Using green means go buy it. Yellow means be cautious buying it, and red means stop. Do not waste your money on it. What I think is elegantly simple about this is it's more understandable than scoring something on a scale from 1 to 10 or giving a comic a grade of A, B, C, D, or F, where someone's grade inflation could make that completely meaningless to a consumer. This dumbs it down to buy it, be cautious about buying it, or don't buy it. Now, what are the colors in between red, green, and yellow? Those are there to give you a little flexibility depending on how enthusiastic you are about your recommendation or negative opinion of a book. If the art is strong but the story is kind of weak, well, you decide if that makes your strong recommendation sort of a medium recommendation or kind of a cautious recommendation. In a Point the Needle video, you might say something as brief as, great art, okay story. Again, the focus is not about the details of each book. The focus is on making a list of books for potential customers. This whole proposal is a rough draft, and I'm open to suggestions for adaptations. So I've added 2 experimental colors. White is for divinely inspired recommendation. This is for the one book that you would recommend so strongly you think everyone should read it. I'm thinking for this to mean anything, you'd only get to put one comic book or maybe one series that are a continuous story in this category for an entire calendar year. Black is for books that you sincerely enjoyed because of how ridiculously bad they were. Can't be so bad it's bad. It's got to be so bad it's good. That's very subject to taste. I have very few books that which I think are terrible but still enjoy. But for example, the Diversity in Comics channel might put Neil Adams' Dead Man here, and literally everyone else might put Jawbreakers here. Speaking of taste, what I like about this is this is a way for you to think through about what you prioritize in a comic you buy and recommend, and you could probably communicate what your emphasis is. Are you more art-focused or are you more story-focused? Do you notice one particular genre of books tends to be your favorite? Now, I've made this graph for people to discuss and use, but more important than accepting this particular proposal to use color symbolism is the idea of making videos which help open the door and welcome older fans who've been waiting to return to comics and parents looking for recommendations to give to their children. In the spirit of that, I'm going to be stepping up my professionalism game to make the visual look of my videos recommending books have a lot more appeal. A continual joke I've made about this channel is that it's the least professional comic book channel starring a cartoon Great Dane on YouTube. For me personally, Point the Needle means becoming the most professional channel starring a cartoon Great Dane on YouTube. But I want a grandma to be able to watch one of my videos, understand what comics would be great to get as Christmas presents. She should know why exactly her grandkids will dig them, and to give her a list she can take with her into the comic book shop to get those books. And for this to work, it probably ought to be done more than once per year. I'd love to see other channels take a look back on what they've done and consider their best picks over the past year or the past few months. I'm not so much married to the idea of having a trending hashtag as having something substantive for the long term to encourage people listening about comic books on YouTube to bite the bullet and support a comic book shop. I think people are already doing that, and the idea of Point the Needle it's that last little nudge the hesitant person needs before they walk in the door. If you want to, you could do it monthly. I think I will do a Point the Needle video about once every 6 months, maybe at the end of June and the end of December, so it fits nicely with the calendar year, current year 2018. As part of what I want to do to help step it up and give my content longer shelf life, I'm going to be retiring the smartphone videos, and this time I mean it. The last one's probably, part 1 of it's probably already gone live, part 2 will go live a little later today, and this was the unexpected bonus video for the day. I'm going to be reviewing more comics I think parents would find edifying for their kids, and I'm going to use these occasional Point the Needle retrospectives to look back on these books and identify the most fun ones to reread after a few month break. So it's sort of like coming back with fresh eyes to make sure you still like it or you still hate it. I want you to feel free to hit me up on Twitter at no1marmaduke-fan. You can email me at no1marmaduke-fan@gmail.com or use the comment section to chat with me about this proposal and whether you'd think you'd either use it or how you'd adapt it for your own channel. Once I have my channel's first Point the Needle video, I think we'll have a nice proof of concept in front of us, but by all means, roast this pitch and by all means, run with this idea. I think there is something potentially useful here for every comics YouTube channel. Quality over quantity is going to be my personal motto for Season 3 of the #1 Marmaduke Fan Show. I love you guys, and I'll catch you later.